All right, what's good in the hood? In this video, I'm going to be doing a tier list breaking down what I think are the most important attributes and aspects to becoming a successful fighter in the UFC. If you like this video, give me a like, a comment, and even a subscribe. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into the D tier. And as a context, D tier, they're all important. S tier, there's only going to be one, and it will be the one and only. But everything else is still an important aspect to consider when you want to be successful in the UFC. But for one reason or another, they're going to be less important, or they're going to be considered redundant, for lack of better words. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into the first one, and it's not being Kayla Harrison. It's weight cutting. All right, why do I put this at D tier? It's very important to cut weight because at the end of the day, UFC is all about, well, for a lot of divisions, it's all about being a weight bully, trying to have as much size. But the reason I put it at D tier is because I think at this point it's pretty well acknowledged that outside of certain fighters and outside of certain divisions, let's say like heavyweight, everyone weight cuts, and it's just a part of the sport. If you don't like weight cutting, run off to Japan and do their, water hydration test. If you don't like, having to fight guys 30, 40 pounds heavier than what's the prescribed weight class. It's kind of something that you have to do it. So it's just a non-negotiable unless you're going to be a big fat heavyweight. Moving on. Actually, I'm going to change the order of these. Also on D tier, but I think more important than weight cutting. And no, it's not making memes of your face, as much as Islam is good at doing that. But Islam's the representation of this. You need to speak English. Why? Well, because the UFC is a USA-based promotion, and the bulk of their audience, I mean, they're a worldwide audience, but I think we can agree that the bulk of their audience, the bulk of where that money is, it's with English-speaking fans. So if you're coming, especially as an unknown prospect, someone that has a small audience on your media, etc., from another country, and now you're fighting in all these US Apex events, maybe you get lucky and go on a pay-per-view in New York, Las Vegas, etc., Florida. If you can't speak English and you can't really, get across your personality, be able to call people out, this and that, you're relying heavily on what? A translator. And there's only a few guys out there, like Charlie Olives, that can get away with that. But they're meeting a lot of other expectations and, meeting a lot of these attributes I'm going to talk later on in this video. So let's be real. And Islam has already said this himself to his own teammates and colleagues over in the Caucasus region. If you don't speak English, good luck trying to get far in the sport. All right, moving on. Okay. Patty the Batty. You need to have, I think, and this might be favored more towards the women, but I think you want to have like a unique look. You want to have something that, makes you stick out. Because let's be real, fighters, they're all going to be tatted out. They're all going to look menacing, this and that for the most part, or they might be a little fruity and exotic and all that. But I think having a unique look, it does pay dividends. And I use Patty as an example because this guy does have a unique look. His haircut, his bulging fat face in the off season. I think it's nice because if you're going to be using social media, you're going to be doing interviews and all that. If you look different from the pack, for better or worse, and like I said, for the women, it might be more perceived with attractiveness, things like that. Having crazy tattoos, dyed hair like Sean O'Malley. I think it's a nice little thing that people don't consider, but you should maybe do some alterations. And again, maybe the women, it's a little tatas. I won't go that far down, but I think it's something to consider, and that UFC fighters should not throw that out, especially when they're at the very bottom and they're trying to build their name with the fans. All right, moving on. You want to have skill, and this is obviously the obvious one. I'm putting it pretty low only because there's obviously other ways to work around this, and tied to Tuivasa, for better or worse, is the representation of a guy that has pretty low skill level, and his ceiling seems to be pretty low too, as in like he has not improved, but he still is, even before his massive losing streak, he was still doing pretty well in the UFC in the sense of just like where he was in the totem pole. But yes, at the end of the day, you need to have the ability to fight, and you need to have a well-rounded mixed martial arts game. Like if you don't know jiu-jitsu and you're constantly getting taken down, even Dana White will eventually say, you're not improving, I'm going to cut you. If you can't fight, like as in you can't strike and actually show fighting, spirit, he'll eventually cut you. But you can get away with that, obviously, with some of the other attributes before and after this. Not to mention if you have things like, crazy power, where even if you're not a good fighter, you can, in the case of Ty, if you can still knock guys out, you can get there. If maybe you can't strike, but you can actually grapple really well, and that can carry you in your early point before you actually learn how to do it, like Habib did, that'll work too. Nonetheless, moving on to the B tiers. This is where it gets a little more wild cardy. Yes, Fallout, GOAT game. Luck. I think luck is something that, again, it's luck, and unlike in the video game, you can't put luck into your fighting profile, but I have to put it on there because luck is a huge factor in being successful in the UFC. And what do I mean by that? When I think luck, I think being at the right place at the right time. And what I mean by that is someone like, I don't know, Hamzat Chimaev might come to example, someone that early in his career in the UFC, especially around that COVID era where he was fighting very, very frequently, he, for one reason or another, was somehow always ready to make weight, either middleweight or welterweight, and he was always ready to take a fight. And that's something where obviously not everyone's going to get presented that opportunity, but people do get presented that opportunity, and they might be like Patty, where they can't make weight and they get offered, a ranked opponent when they're ranked 10 or 11, and they refuse because, they're not ready. They didn't put that effort in. And I think it's just something that you want to always be putting yourself in a position where if there's a lucky event where some guy gets hurt, or if some guy gets pulled out, or whatever it is, or what some opportunity arises that's very unexpected, and you can deal with the negotiations afterwards, but you're there to put your name in the ballot. And there's been, like I said, many guys that over the years have benefited from, just crazy opportunities. Bisping, right? Bisping was 2 weeks off the couch, was somehow able to make weight for middleweight and go on to, win undisputed gold against Luke Rockhold. Was he lucky? Yeah. Did he have other skills and attributes that carried him to that nice finish? Yeah. But at the end of the day, he was always a guy that was, doing cardio and was slightly training in the offseason. So he got that opportunity. He went on to be a megastar. All right, moving on. Y'all got to have a little bit of autism. JK. No, you got to have a country that backs you and backs you very much like you are one of their own. And that's something that it's more applicable, I would say. It's applicable to the US, but I think it's very applicable when you come from another country and you're fighting in the US and no one knows hell who you are, and they think you're just some autistic Georgian. Sorry, Marab. You might be. But it's very helpful, especially on the business side of things, when, Dana and Hunter and all that, they see this guy that comes in that he might not be the most flashy. He might not have the best personality. He might not speak the best English, but they see, oh, he's got 400,000 subs on his, Instagram. And it looks like from the metrics they see, like he's a very popular guy in this random country he's from, be it Georgia, Brazil, etc. Well, they're not random countries, but you get my point. If you have a nice country that's behind you, and especially a country that they're focusing on, let's say China, right? Zhang Weili, she benefited one of the most from it, right? She was popular over there, maybe not as much as they had hoped, but at the end of the day, they can use her as a ploy to get into that business, into that market, and to do events over there. So, if she, had no social media, was really unaware, when they originally found her, it wouldn't be as it wouldn't be as impactful. But also you have to consider the fact that she happened to be in the gold mine of China, where if she was maybe part of a different country like Vietnam or I don't know, Laos, like they're still big countries, but the market maybe wouldn't have been as advantageous for like the UFC to pursue. So it is what it is. And even in the case like something like Marab, like they're not going to Georgia anytime soon. They should, especially if he gets that rematch against Peter. But yeah, it's a nice little thing to have, and I think it definitely helps you start your growth because it'll strengthen your like social medias definitely early on, because people are very proud. I think when you come out with that flag and you constantly give that that pep talk about your background in that country and how you do it for them and this and that, and your upbringing, it really helps build your credibility as you try to bloom into like a a superstar. All right, moving on. The controversial one, needles. All right, steroids. You can take them worlds too. I have not yet. All right, steroids. I put them as like it's like a weird 50-50. I put this in as a silly one because obviously it's more probably detrimental than it is helpful for your career. Though obviously there's been boys in the past, either before USADA or even after USADA, like Mr. John Bones Jones and other lovely cases that you can go check out on people like MMA Girls channel that they track that shit. The point is, steroids are like a weird 50-50. They can obviously be helpful because, yes, they're going to make you perform better. If you never get caught, that's great. But also, you get caught and you take someone like Muhammad Usman, it's going to kill your career. It's a very much like you want to do it if you want to, be a little above. TJ Dillashaw, perfect example. He wanted to be a little above the pack when he was trying to go double champ status. That backfired. And then obviously on the flip side, again, like I said, you take Muhammad Usman, who's just a dumbass, and now he got cut and he lost. He's 2 years banned, I believe. So it's just a very interesting case of middle of the road of like in this day and age. There's obviously ways around, the testing still, and there's definitely guys that may or may not still do some level of juicing. And who knows? Again, there's always rumors. Let's say like Marab, like how the hell does he have infinite cardio even when he's sick in his last fight with Peter Yan? We'll never know, but the reality is it's part of the sport, and it has helped build some careers, past, present, and maybe future. All right, let's go to the A tiers. This is where this good stuff's coming. Stoneface, Chama. I think this one is kind of like a weird intangible because not everyone has it, and it's very tied to other factors on here, but aura. Having like a very unique, special aura is super valuable to becoming, a mega star in the UFC. And again, I take someone like Poatan, Alex Pereira, because let's be real, when he came into the UFC, he was already pretty credible, but he didn't really speak any English at all. Very stoic, very like kind of just like on paper, he came off as very like, one dimensional. Like, why do we care about this guy? Sure, he has flashy knockouts, but even then, a lot of his fights are kind of slow and plodding. But I mean, goddamn, like he does own that element of just like for him, he is the Chama, he is the Stoneface, like he is a silent killer. Other auras like Yuri. Yuri is just a madman, a guy out there. He is the embodiment of a samurai. Trying to think, the list goes on and on. If you can embody some sort of like crazy archetype and carry that unique aura, not just when you're going into the arena, not just when your walkouts, not just your face-offs, but like interviews, just general interaction, like it's just huge because it just makes you above and beyond just an average fighter. Like you go above and beyond a stereotypical human. Like you are exceptional. And the reality is not everyone has this. This is, I think, something that's very, very rare. And when you do have it, you're generally going to be, like it's not correlated to being a superstar, but it's pretty damn close. All right, moving on. The entertainment aspect, exclusively obviously in the octagon itself. Justin Gaethje is probably the best embodiment of it, at least in the most recent portion of the UFC. There's my dinner timer going off. I don't know why it wasn't muted. We're making potatoes, babies. All right, Justin Gaethje, the highlight. If you can be entertaining as an actual fighter, which usually encompasses striking, wars, that kind of stuff, blood, knockouts, that is one of the most important things to have. And that also means that you don't have to necessarily win. You might win one every 2 fights, whatever. I mean, you probably have to win more than you lose, at least early on, just so they don't just like cut you, ... But let's be real. If you're winning most of your fights, a good amount of your fights, and the ones you lose are close and they're like true fight of night wars, they're never going to cut you, and you're always going to be featured on pay-per-views, etc. So again, I take someone like Justin because he does have a bunch of losses in the UFC. You take who else? I mean, Charles Oliveira, he had a lot of losses early in his career, but again, he was always entertaining. And it's just something that at the end of the day, UFC is a business. And, for better or worse, like watching a lot of guys grapple or a lot of guys just pitter patter and jab and have a little shoot kickboxing match, wherever. It's gonna appeal to some of the audience, but the casual fan needs to see blood. The casual fan needs to see knockouts. The casual fan needs to see actual scraps. And if you can put on scraps, you will always have the potential being something great. Obviously, you need to have some other attributes, which is the next one. Chael Sonnen, you need to be able to talk. You need to talk the talk. Obviously, you need to walk the walk, which I just said before, but you need to talk the talk. And this comes in a lot of different aspects. It's not just calling people out after you win a fight. It's not just doing interviews and social media and this and that. I think a lot of it just comes down to, again, you have to have a persona. You have to be able to, in those moments, like a lot of it comes down to pressers and this and that. You need to be able to just drop generational one-liners that will transcend time. Who the fuck is that guy, mate? Yeah, I mean, these are guys that they're no like there's plenty of guys that can go on 7, 8 fight win streaks. There's plenty of guys that can be flashy and have good knockouts. But if you're not creating those great sound bites, in this day and age with social media, everyone's creating, and I'm one of them too. You're making shorts, this and that, and all the social media platforms. When someone says something ridiculous at a presser, I'm trying to think of a recent one. When Peter Yan was pretty much calling Marab gay for having only dudes in his on his was it hot tubs or whatever, jacuzzi. Like that's little things where it's like Peter does not speak really much English at all, but he's dropping these translated crazy one-liner insults, and that was pretty much the highlight of the whole presser. And then going into the fight, and it's just like, oh, okay, so like we now know that Peter, despite not speaking English, is low key a pretty funny bully, and put autistic Marab in his place. Like obviously again, Chael, Connor, Bisping, these are just legendary guys that they almost never mess up for the most part, and they always just drop either monumental one-liners or they're just really good at shitting on their opponent and making their opponent look like an idiot, or just creating heat. At the end of the day, too, a lot of it just comes down to it's a fight, and there's too much respect, and there should be respect, but you know, it's a fight business. We're like a week out from a fight. Back then with pay-per-view, like fight, like we need to create some like a little bit of hype, and you have it someone on one end like a Chael Sonnen like crapping on you without being too racist or anything. ... Brazilian steaks. It's really good. It's really good, and it's like I said, it's probably one of the most important. It's essentially I would probably say the most important outside of our S tier, our unique special case attribute to consider. The final one. No, that's not a thumb. That's not a grape. That's Dana White. Okay, this one's obviously been run through the mud over the years, but we'll use Francis Ngannou as like the textbook case for better or worse. You could be entertaining. You can have aura, which he did. You can be a really good fighter. You can have the belt even. If you're not good for business in the sense that you're not a good, businessman, you can't do business with the owner of the business, Dana White, Hunter, etc. If they don't like you, at the end of the day, if you are not on their liked list, you're never going to succeed, no matter how much you have going for you. The moment you the moment you wrong the right, or whatever the expression would be, the moment you step on their toes, they're not going to want to do business with you anymore. And that's the thing. This isn't a sport. This is a business. And Arman Sharukian, for however you want to make it like you feel about him, he is the current scapegoat, the current example of how you can be the number one contender. You can be on a winning streak. You can be entertaining, both in and outside the octagon. You can have a whole country behind you. He has somewhat of an aura. He can speak English. He does literally everything on this list outside of steroids, and they still don't seem to want to give him a path towards the belt. And it is what it is. And like I said, France was obviously one of the brutal cases of, sure, he was asking for a lot, but then obviously Dana comes out and pretty much says like he really annoyed me. He really left a sour taste, and we just literally didn't want to do business with him, even though he at that point already had the belt, no less. So you have to always preserve Dana. Yes, Dana White privilege, and that's something it's a weird intangible, because sure, he's kind of leaving that role as he send the files and whatever, the reports, the court case, all that. But whoever's the next Dana White, you have to always behind the scenes, obviously be respectful as needed. Pressers, this and that, obligations they ask for you, and then obviously, like I said, back to things like luck. When they ask you to step in because they want you to, because you're the best fit, you might want to take it because you're gonna get in their good graces. So let me know, is there anything I missed? Is there anything that's very, very tangible, very, very, very important to for a fighter to focus on beyond the ability to actually fight in order to be successful in the UFC? Let me know in the comments, and obviously drop a like if you enjoyed this. This is once one of many more tier lists you'll see later this week.